Hi, it's Amanda DeVito Parle. Welcome to my podcast, At the Kitchen Table, where we will guide, inspire, and connect.
Well, hi, Greg Geller.
Hello, Amanda DeVito. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to At the Kitchen Table.
Thank you for having me.
Where we guide, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs and just have interesting conversation about interesting things. And so I wanted to bring you here, one, because you're a wonderful friend and a dear colleague and somebody I absolutely adore talking to, and because you do this thing that not many people do that I think is super interesting. And I mean that. And so tell me a little about yourself and what is it that you do and how did you get here?
So I have been in the real estate business for the past nearly 30 years. Next year will be my 30th year of buying houses. And so while, yes, I do some brokerage, I concentrate my business on buying houses, renovating, and also wholesaling some houses as well.
So this is commonly known as fix and flip.
Fix and flip, yes. And while there are new challenges all the time, it's very similar or the same as what it's been for the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. You're looking for houses that have a margin in there. Typically, buyers like to buy around 70% of what we call ARV, which is the after repaired value or the end value. And that 70% really is a little bit high now. The proper number should be 65% of after repaired value.
When you say 65%, you mean that you would like to buy it at 65% of the value it's going to be the day that you sell it to the end.
Vis-a-vis, if we're going to buy a house that would be worth $1 million at the end, we really shouldn't pay more than about $650 for it. Sometimes it doesn't always work because sellers have needs and there's competitive. It's a very competitive industry. Lots of people buying, so you don't always get to buy 65%. The new model that people are working on, which is interesting and probably a little more effective, is they're working on a 75% model, but they're taking the repairs after the 75%. So on that same $1 million property that maybe needed a $200,000, they would take 75%, which would be $750 minus the $200, which bring them down to $550, which becomes a 55% model. But when you're dealing in higher priced properties, you're dealing with more interest carry, you're dealing with higher finish costs. Also, time on market is going to be protracted. So there's some merit in using a little bit more of an aggressive model, but then you run into the problem where when you're just trying to buy things super cheap, you can't find sellers who will go along with the program.
Okay, well, so let's back up and talk about, I want you to just tell me a little bit about the company you're running now and what's the name of your company you're running now?
So I own Vision Home Buyers, which is connected to Vision Real Estate. So the brokerage company that I own is Vision Real Estate and the fix-up company is Vision Home Buyers.
Right. And that scaled big and small. And so how are you operating now? And tell us a little bit about your small business.
So in 2011 and 12, I had begun offering a brand license program to people around the country who wanted to learn how I ran my program, how I bought, using my algorithms, using my marketing materials. So at one time I had 18 brand licensees operating in the country. But as burnout happens to people, admittedly, after about 2017, when the licenses were starting to expire, I elected not to continue with the license program because it was just too much for me to run by myself. And what I had done was I had sold the brand licenses and then I had sold an MSA, which is a marketing services agreement, which would mean I would run the marketing for these people after they paid for their license and learned how to do the work. Then I would continue to run the marketing for them and then also coach them and give them advice on the market. And I just got tired of running around, traveling to different cities and doing it by myself. So I contracted the program. And then at that time, I also had 40 real estate brokers working under me.
Right.
And after 22, 23 years in the business, I had just burnt out.
But you're doing a really wonderful thing now. And the run broker who is working for you is who?
My son works for me. And I actually have another broker, Jeff Stell, who works for me as well. And I'm looking for a few more brokers. I want to have 5. That's ideal. And I'm also doing coaching, which I love the coaching. So I'm coaching new real estate agents how to get their businesses going. And I've got 2 right now. I'm looking for 3 more. So I found that I'm not interested in killing myself anymore in this business.
Yeah.
I'm interested in finding the areas where I can work a healthy amount, have work-life balance, do the coaching, help people, and hopefully train some brokers how to sell real estate the correct way.
Well, and you're effective in the area of the business that you're really an expert in. And I want to stay focused on that too. The area of the business that I feel like you're really an expert in is this fix and flip model. You have built the business in Denver like almost nobody else I know, and have been able to stay at that aspect of the business longer than anybody. And so tell me, how did you end up there?
So I would agree that there are very few tenured home buyers that have been doing this as long as I have. The closest one I know has been doing it for about 20 years, but it's a very difficult business. Fix and flip is difficult. You have to find deals. And at this time right now...
Where do you find deals?
So I'm not doing a lot of direct marketing anymore right now. The bottom line is it wasn't working. For years and years, I sent out thousands of letters to homeowners that would say, I'll buy your house, I'll pay cash. If your house needs work, I'm a good buyer. I will make it easy. I have flexible closing dates. I let you leave behind whatever you want.
Right. That was a convenience purchase.
We offer ease of transaction.
That's right.
And that typically means that a buyer, or rather a seller, could agree to sell to us and have an undefined closing date. And that's very helpful when you're going to Florida, or you're trying to find your next, maybe a community living, where you're going from a house where you're going to go live in assisted living or community living, but they don't have a spot for you yet. So we write a contract with them, and then we close with them whenever they're ready. So we offer every area of the transaction, we break it down to make it so there's no uncertainty.
You're still doing all of that, right?
Always will.
Yeah.
That's how we always buy. And the people that I buy from come from a lot of real estate agents who bring me houses, and a lot of referrals from past clients. And really that's, for me, speaks a lot, because to have people that I bought their houses in the past, they were satisfied enough with the price and the transaction, they went ahead and referred their family and friends. Last year, I finished up with a family who sold us 9 houses in 3 years between their entire family. It was nice having that built-in respect and the built-in trust levels, because what I have found in real estate, the most important 3 components of a relationship is the like you, know you, trust you. People have to like you and know you and trust you. 2 of the 3 are really necessary to complete a real estate transaction with somebody that you might do business with. And so having people trust me enough to refer me to buy their house is very, very special for me. And then the real estate agents that I work with, you included, bring me houses knowing that I'm going to close, and then I'm going to treat the sellers with respect, and I'm going to be flexible when flexibility is required.
Right. So talk to me just a little bit about, I want to stay kind of focused on how do you analyze the asset? So let's say you've got this relationship with this family that brought you 9 pieces of property. They like you. That's something that, your reputation precedes you when you've been in the business a long time. You get to have these established relationships, and then in that is this know, like, and trust piece. But so now you have the trust of these people, and you get to go into their house. Typically the houses are either dated or in disrepair. Is that fair to say?
That is fair.
And you like them that way, sort of the dirt, the worse the better, right? Not necessarily,
but to a degree. But I think that the way I approach these sellers now, and the real estate agents as well, is for a long time, I felt like it was not best to put all my cards on the table.
Sure.
I would come in and say, what will you pay? What can I buy it for? And really play a lot of cat and mouse, because that's the way it was. But I have found with so much competition operating in some areas not as honestly as I would, then I provide a very transparent piece. And so when I analyze a house, I start out with a spreadsheet, or a document on Microsoft Word, where I spell out what comps I'm using, mm-hmm. and I'm trying to find really a high comp, a low comp, and a medium, or a high comp and a couple actives that are not moving, so I can kind of define what it's not selling for.
Right.
And then I find my price, and it's usually on the higher level, the higher range of the pricing.
Okay, but your price has a formula.
My price has a formula. It's based on comparables, and I'm looking for square footage, bedrooms and bathrooms, and location. And I'm not trying to use a 2-story to comp out a ranch. I'm trying to use other ranches. Right. And I'm trying to use recent sales. Last year, I was using a formula that required me to go back to the year before, because the market was fairly unstable last year. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of falling prices and a lot of unexplained stagnation mm-hmm. in the market, where good houses that would have sold the year before just weren't moving. Mm-hmm. And in price ranges that were surprising to all of us. I would look at houses that were listed between $550 and $750, and really a ridiculous amount of available property. Mm-hmm. Whereas the year before, you couldn't find anything.
Right.
And then last year, and it really wasn't just a seasonal thing. Throughout the year, I was seeing a lot of active properties that were dragging down the market. So I keep in mind what those non-selling assets are doing. Then I go through, I do a repair budget, and I put that all down on paper for someone to see, and then I outline my other costs, and people don't always understand, but fix and flippers have quite a bit of extra cost besides the cost to fix a property. We have back-end commissions, we have closing costs in and out, and that's going to include the title, insurance, utilities, HOA if there is one, and then we have to factor in a profit, and I try to work at around an 8% profit margin on the sales price, which always shrinks down to around 5 or 6 because of unexpected costs, and then that's about my number. So if you take a standard deal that needs, $50,000 worth of work, I start out at that, it's worth 600, I'm gonna subtract out my profit first. Gotta take out the profit first, because if you don't, you're gonna end up short at the end and say, oh, I'll just do it for less. And then you end up doing it for break even. So you put your profit in first, so that's gonna be around $48,000 on a $600,000 deal. I've gotta back out those commissions of around $18,000. I'm gonna back out the closing costs of around $10,000, and I'm gonna back out my carry costs, my costs of owning the money, which is gonna be hard money, which is usually 3 points and 12%. So I'm going to back out of that $600,000 deal. I'm going to back out another $30,000, and I'm going to end up with a raw number. And that's all on paper, and it's going to be what I'm going to be offering a seller. And typically, reasonable people have no problem selling me their house.
Yeah, particularly when you back it out for them that way.
Right.
If you show them that the profit's 8% or 5 to 8%, and the rest of the carry, they understand those numbers if they can really see them.
And if we have reasonable people, they understand they are going to be fixing their house to some degree if they sell it in the market. They're going to be putting money in. They're going to be paying fees. And they're going to be having uncertainty.
Right.
And anybody who's moving wants to have it over with. People will tell us all day long they're not in a hurry. If your home is on the market, you're lying if you say you're not in a hurry. You want this process over with, because what do people really hate? They hate uncertainty. People hate not knowing what's going to happen. If they know what they're going to get, they're very happy with me. They know where they're getting this amount of money on this date, no matter what.
Right.
They also know the deal is not going to change on them. And because of these factors and the fact that I am very honest, I've been doing this a long time, I have street credibility, I buy a lot of houses from people who are reasonable about value.
Right.
Now, obviously, there are wrinkles in value, and one of them being anything could happen with value. You could put a great house on the market today, and this afternoon, a snowstorm shows up that cripples the city for a week and a half. That house is worth less in a week and a half. It's been on the market for 10 days. People forget that it was snowing. They don't just belly up and pay full price if it's been on the market for 10 days or 2 weeks. So factors like daylight savings, they affect price. Seasonality. Fires in California will affect real estate values even in Colorado.
Football schedules, the playoffs,
every
snowstorms.
Football. If the Broncos are doing
election
well,
years.
we could have worse. The 2 best days to show are Saturday and Sunday. That's when people aren't working. Well, if you eliminate one day, it's the Chick-fil-A deal. They're going to lose out on a chunk of revenue because they're not open on Sundays. And the same thing with we're watching football on Sundays. If the Broncos are doing well, and the deeper they get in the playoffs, the harder it's going to be. And sometimes that demand does not just show up in February. Sometimes people say to themselves, if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. This doesn't feel right to me. Feel can have an impact on what people do.
Sure.
So people like to think that real estate values is absolute. This is the furthest thing from the truth. Real estate values fluctuate minute by minute. People's moods change minute by minute. People get bad news, they change. Their appetite for buying big things changes. And also, people really will tell you confidentially their biggest fear in life is making a mistake. It's not losing money. It's not this or that. It's and family. Part of that is living with the mistake. And part of it is just the idea that you've gotten to a certain point in life, you just don't make mistakes. Yeah. And so when people are put in the position where they might make a mistake or they might have uncertainty, they're very, very uncomfortable.
Right.
Very uncomfortable.
So it's interesting. What are the 3 common mistakes people make in fix and flipping, or maybe in your industry, or maybe both from a consumer perspective or from the buying or from the investor perspective? What are maybe the 3 common mistakes that investors or consumers are making in this process?
The biggest mistake is trusting the wrong people. When you have people that are looking for this investment, real opportunity real estate, we'll call it.
Yeah.
People are looking for opportunity real estate that might need the trusted expertise of somebody who knows fix and flip, who understands. When, one of the more common client calls that agents get is, I want to do a fix and flip. And Amanda, how many of those calls have you gotten in your career?
Right. Yeah. People
Thousands.
call. They want to fix up a house, make a little profit.
Yeah, and it happens all the time. And so when agents warrant themselves as ones who understand how to sell fix and flip, but who really don't, I hear people come to me all the time. They say, I like doing it, but the last person I bought from didn't do a good job of explaining to me what the perils are of fix and flip, who understand what costs are going to come up that you're not counting on, and what happens if you blow your budget. The next thing that people do over time, every single time, is they blow their budget.
Right.
Newer people don't understand that extra $500 on the light fixture and that extra $1,000 on upgraded countertops, it all starts to add up. And when your profit margin is only 8%, you don't have enough extra money to blow your budget.
Right. So they mismanage the money. They miscalculate the money.
They bought wrong. They mismanaged. Fix up.
Correct.
There's certainly windows that you'll have a better result, and there's certain windows in the year that anybody can fix and probably do okay.
Yeah.
And if you're rolling out property in the spring, you're probably going to be okay no matter what.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way it is. If you're putting out a good remodeled house, and that predicates itself on being good product.
That's right.
There's a lot of poor fix-up product that is put on the market, but if you're putting out something that's average, above average, or wildly above average, you're going to sell your house in the springtime.
So let's talk about this. So supply, materials, how do you make a decision about how much money and what kind of materials you're going to put into a price? Is it based on price point? Do you use the same vendors over and over again? Are you sourcing materials?
The material costs are what they cost, and there's really no good way to shave off thousands of dollars off of renovation. We're going to fix up to about $800,000. That's as far as I'm comfortable with. I don't want to own $1 million properties because it's a lot of stress, and it also does not allow me to fix up other properties. Very few people I know can hold on to multiple million dollar properties at one time.
Yeah.
And so when you're fixing in that, say $400,000 to $800,000 range, the finishes are going to be pretty much the same. But we have a standard product that we use. Honestly, we use the IKEA kitchen. We use the quartz countertops. We use the vanities from a company called Stone International, who has vanities in stock. And then, I put quartz tops on everything. And fixture package I buy from Amazon. And I've streamlined my process to be using basically the same materials and every color palette in the same house. One way to make this more efficient, if you're
buying in Aurora and Arvada and Littleton and Broomfield, it doesn't matter.
I'm fixing the same.
Yeah.
I'm fixing the same. And what I've learned in this business is that a lot of people who renovate think they want to add a creative feel to the project.
Right.
You're not an interior designer. You're doing construction.
Right.
And what people want is they want a plain palette, and they want their decorations and their furniture to be the punch. They don't want green walls. They don't want interesting tile. They want a basic palette so their stuff shines. It's not so the house shines. And so a lot of renovators don't understand that if you have somebody creative that wants to help you, remove them from the job.
Okay.
If you're married and you're going to be the fix-up guy and your wife, wants to run around and source everything in different places and really creative places, then you're not doing this. You need to stop doing this and move on to a different kind of project, because there's no room for creativity in renovation and fix and flip, because the buyers don't like it.
Yeah.
The buyers want plain. For a long time, because they weren't creative, but they want plain so their stuff is the splash. They don't want the house to be the splash. These are not multi-million-dollar homes in Cherry Hills that have a lot of features, and features are not finishes, by the way. A pool is not a finish. A pool is a pool. A pool is an appurtenance. It's a benefit. It's not a finish. The finishes should be plain. They should be very attractive to wide varieties of people, instead of trying to pigeonhole your property into just a few people who might not like the rest of it. So I have had to learn that creativity home builders put out. They're plain. Yes. They're plain, and then you can upgrade at your choice.
You dress them up with furniture and things like
this.
Right,
but that's why they're upgrades. That's why the want to put their own stuff in there to make it
hard money or investor funds
right.
to purchase the asset, and then the investor funds to actually renovate the asset. You take your margin. That's how you earn the cash to the investor.
Right.
You're building in all of that money, and then you do it again. And so really is money. Talk a little bit about how you go to borrow
different ways they lend money. And